Hi, this is Bruce again. Now we're going to be looking at the 1970s list for 1001 albums you must hear before you die. And here we go. Cosmo's Factory by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs by Derek and the Dominoes. Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus by Spirit. Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. Morrison Hotel by The Doors. Close to You by The Carpenters. Stephen Stills by Stephen Stills. Plastic Ono Band by John Lennon. Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Black Sabbath. Paranoid by Black Sabbath. After the Gold Rush by Neil Young, Led Zeppelin 3 by Led Zeppelin, In Rock by Deep Purple, Moondance by Van Morrison, American Beauty by Grateful Dead, Brighter Later by Nick Drake, Ananda Shankar by Ananda Shankar, Live at Leeds by The Who, Third by Soft Machine, Gasoline Alley by Rod Stewart, All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel, Tea for the Tellerman by Cat Stevens, John Barleycorn Must Die by Traffic, Funhouse by the Stooges, Sweet Baby James by James Taylor, McCartney by Paul McCartney, Abraxas by Santana, Madcap Laughs by Syd Barrett, Aqualung by Jethro Tull, If Only I Could Remember My Name by David Crosby, There's a Riot Going On by Sly and the Family Stone, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, Yes Album by Yes, Trafalgar by the Bee Gees, Who's Next by The Who, Tapestry by Carole King, Shaft music from the soundtrack by Isaac Hayes, At Fillmore East by Allman Brothers, Sticky Fingers by Rolling Stones, Imagine by John Lennon, Surf's Up by Beach Boys, Fragile by Yes, LA Woman by The Doors, Tago Mago by Can, Madman Across the Water by Elton John, Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton, American Pie by Don McLean, Tarkus by Emerson Lake and Palmer, Led Zeppelin 4 or Untitled or Four Symbols by Led Zeppelin, Histoire de Melody Nelson by Sergei Gainsbourg, Every Picture Tells a Story by Rod Stewart, Pictures at an Exhibition by Emerson Lake and Palmer, Songs of Love and Hate by Leonard Cohen, Blue by Joni Mitchell, Maggot Brain by Funkadelic, Pearl by Janis Joplin, Fela Kuti with Ginger Baker Live by Fela Kuti, a Nod is as Good as a Wink to a Blind Horse by Faces, Teenage Head by Flamin' Groovies, White Light by Gene Clark, John Prine by John Prine, Nelson Schmelson by Harry Nelson, Electric Warrior by T-Rex, Hunky Dory by David Bowie, Sail Away by Randy Newman, Machine Head by Deep Purple, Number One Record by Big Star, Volume 4 by Black Sabbath, Can't Buy a Thrill by Steely Dan, Harvest by Neil Young, Superfly original motion picture soundtrack by Curtis Mayfield, Slade by Slade, Made in Japan by Deep Purple, Close to the Edge by Yes, Transformer by Lou Reed, Home is Where the Music Is by Hugh Masekela, Club de Esquina by Milton Nascimento and Lo Borges, Something Anything by Todd Rundgren, Will the Circle Be Unbroken by Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Talking Book by Stevie Wonder, Manassas by Stephen Stills, Slider by T-Rex, American Gothic by David Ackles, Eagles by the Eagles, Greetings from LA by Tim Buckley, Pink Moon by Nick Drake, Paul Simon by Paul Simon, Roxy Music by Roxy Music, Schools Out by Alice Cooper, All Directions by The Temptations, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie, World is a Ghetto by War, Let's Stay Together by Al Green, Exile on Main Street by Rolling Stones, pronounced Leonard Skinnerd by Leonard Skinnerd, Bongo Rock by Incredible Bongo Band, Aladdin Sane by David Bowie, Lark's Tongues and Aspic by King Crimson, Catch a Fire by Bob Marley and the Wailers, Space Ritual by Hawkwind, Paris 1919 by John Cale, Future Days by Can, Berlin by Lou Reed, Selling England by the Pound by Genesis, Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye, Solid Air by John Martin, For Your Pleasure by Roxy Music, 4 by Faust, Headhunters by Herbie Hancock, Mott by Mott the Hoople, Tubular Bells by Mike Goldfield, A Wizard, a True Star by Todd Rundgren, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John, Countdown to Ecstasy by Steely Dan, Honky Tonk Heroes by Waylon Jennings, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder, Tres Hombres by ZZ Top, Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings, Next by Sensational Alex Harvey Band, Billion Dollar Babies by Alice Cooper, Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges, 3+3 by Isley Brothers, New York Dolls by New York Dolls, Here Come the Warm Jets by Brian Eno, Bad Company by Bad Company, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis, Inspiration Information by Shuggy Otis, Full Fulfillingness's First Finale by Stevie Wonder, 461 Ocean Boulevard by Eric Clapton, Autobahn by Kraftwerk, It's Too Late to Stop Now by Van Morrison, Core and Spark by Joni Mitchell, Queen 2 by Queen, Country Life by Roxy Music, Phaedra by Tangerine Dream, Kimono My House by Sparks, Crime of the Century by Supertramp, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight by Richard and Lisa Thompson, Winter in America by Gil Scott-Heron and Brian Jackson, Sheer Heart Attack by Queen, Sheet Music by 10cc, On the Beach by Neil Young, Grand Tour by George Jones, No Other by Gene Clark, Pretzel Logic by Steely Dan, Good Old Boys by Randy Newman, Natty Dread by Bob Marley and the Wailers, Rock Bottom by Robert Wyatt, Grievous Angel by Graham Parsons, Another Green World by Brian Eno, Go Girl Crazy by Dictators, 75 by Nui. Anyways, Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, Cold Concert by Keith Jarrett, Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, Young Americans by David Bowie, Marcus Garvey by Burning Spear, Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, Pieces of the Sky by Emmylou Harris, Born to Be With You by Dion, Hissing of Summer Lawns by Joni Mitchell, Nighthawks of the Diner by Tom Waits, Shalimar Soundtrack by Rahul Dev Burman, Tonight's the Night by Neil Young, Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, Horses by Patti Smith, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, A Night at the Opera by Queen, Red-Headed Stranger by Willie Nelson, That's the Way of the World by Earth, Wind and Fire, There's No Place Like America Today by Curtis Mayfield, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Modern Lovers by Modern Lovers, Station to Station by David Bowie, Hejira by Joni Mitchell, Boston by Boston, Hotel California by the Eagles, Arrival by ABBA, Destroyer by Kiss, 2112 by Rush, Ben Yorgi Africa Brazil by Jorge Ben, Joan Armatrading by Joan Armatrading, Rocks by Aerosmith, Mothership Connection by Parliament, Music from the Penguin Cafe by Penguin Cafe Orchestra, Oxygene by Jean-Michel Jarre, Ramones by the Ramones, Zombie by Fela Kuti, Legalize It by Peter Tosh, Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, Frampton Comes Alive by Peter Frampton, Before and After Science by Brian Eno, Trans-Europe Express by Kraftwerk, The Stranger by Billy Joel, Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers, Out of the Blue by Electric Light Orchestra, Heavy Weather by Weather Report, Hard Again by Muddy Waters, Radis Norvegicus by Stranglers, Clash by The Clash, Low by David Bowie, Asia by Steely Dan, Pink Flag by Wire, One World by John Martin, 77 by Talking Heads, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, Heroes by David Bowie, Pacific Ocean Blue by Dennis Wilson, Suicide by Suicide, The Idiot by Iggy Pop, Peter Gabriel 1 by Peter Gabriel, Marquee Moon by Television, Bad Out of Hell by Meatloaf, My Aim is True by Elvis Costello, Lust for Life by Iggy Pop, New Boots and Panties by Ian Dury, Never Mind the Bullocks, Here's the Sex Pistols by the Sex Pistols, Modern Dance by Pierre Ubu, Man Machine by Kraftwerk, Parallel Lines by Blondie, Vento de Mayo by Elis Regina, Dub Housing by Pierre Ubu, Only Ones by Only Ones, This Year's Model by Elvis Costello, All Mod Cons by The Jam, Honky Tonk Masquerade by Joe Eli, Crossing the Red Sea with the Adverts by The Adverts, Third or Sister Lovers by Big Star, Duck Stab, Buster and Glenn by The Residents, Public Image by Public Image Limited, Real Life by Magazine, Darkness on the Edge of Town by Bruce Springsteen, One Nation Under a Groove by Funkadelic, DOA Third and Final Report by Throbbing Gristle, Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy, More Songs About Buildings and Food by Talking Heads, Another Music in a Different Kitchen by Buzzcocks, Van Halen by Van Halen, Siembra by Willie Colon and Ruben Blades, Cars by the Cars, Are We Not Men? A, We Are Devo by Devo, Dire Straits by Dire Straits, Eternally Yours by The Saints, Here My Dear by Marvin Gaye, Stardust by Willie Nelson, Say Chic by Chic, Germ Free Adolescence by X-Ray Specs, Ambient One Music for Airports by Brian Eno, The Scream by Susie and the Banshees, Highway to Hell by AC/DC, We Are Family by Sister Sledge, Street Life by the Crusaders, GI by the Germs, B-52s by the B-52s, Movies by Holger Zuke, Regatta de Blanc by The Police, Live at the Witch Trials by The Fall, Fear of Music by Talking Heads, Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division, Risque by The Chic, Undertones by The Undertones, London Calling by The Clash, Quiet Life by Japan, Broken English by Marianne Faithfull, Cut by Slits, Armed Forces by Elvis Costello, Rest Never Sleeps by Neil Young, Entertainment by Gang of Four, At Budokan by Cheap Trick, Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, The Wall by Pink Floyd, Metal Box by Public Image Limited, Off the Wall by Michael Jackson, Machine Gun Etiquette by The Damned, Pleasure Principle by Gary Newman, The Specials by The Specials. And that's it for the 1970s. We'll go to the 1980s next.